there, you gorgeous lot. Welcome to my little makeshift kitchen here. My name is Charlotte White and today we're going to talk about the C word. Christmas. It's time for Christmas cakes. I often say that Christmas is the one time of year that sane people like you lot there at home will attempt to decorate a cake. Unlike us nutters and unhinged folk who do it all year round, this is the time of year you want to make a cake, you want to make it gorgeous for your friends and family. So without further ado, let's get going. Right, we need to start with a Christmas cake. Now, the recipe for my Christmas cake is actually on this website. It's online. It's my ruby red Christmas cake and you can start baking that now. You need to let it mature for about 4 weeks before you eat it. So, Christmas cake, when it comes out of the oven, it's a fairly humble looking thing. My very first tip for you is that we want a nice straight top to cover, so we're going to get that by flipping the cake upside down, because we know that when this has been baked in a tin it's going to have a perfectly straight edge here and lovely straight sides, and that is key to contemporary Christmas cake decorating. Now you need to prepare the surface of your cake for marzipan, and you can boil up apricot jam so that you can spread it, or you can get the squeezy stuff, which is much quicker. And let's face it, this time of year we want to save little bits of time where we can, because it's a time of year for parties, it's a time of year for champagne drinking, so we don't want to be spending hours upon hours boiling apricot jam. Now I'm just going to brush the top and all of the sides of the cake with that jam, and this does two things. It's an adhesive for the marzipan, but it's also a protective layer which will prevent your cake from going mouldy, basically. I mean, we can keep Christmas cake for such a long time, and this is one of the reasons why, the high sugar content of your jam. Now that's all ready to go. I'm just going to pop it over to the side out of the way. We now need to prepare our marzipan. I've got here a kilo of marzipan for this 6-inch cake. The recipe on my website is for a 8-inch cake, so you need about another 500 grams. You will end up with a lot left over, but it's better to start with more than you need. So, sorry this is a noisy job, putting down some icing sugar in a nice long line, because this is what we want to roll out, is a nice long strip of marzipan. So I'm going to lay my marzipan down, and either side I'm going to put marzipan spacers. Now these little bits of plastic are a great little bit of kit, because they ensure that you get a really even thickness on your marzipan when you're rolling out, because your rolling pin won't be able to go anywhere lower than the top of the marzipan spaces. At this point I should say my eyes are up here. Okay, we keep focused up here. Thank you. This is not a bluey. So, right, rolling out a nice long strip of marzipan. Okay, and I'm using a non-stick rolling pin. Again, a note on kit: if you have a good non-stick rolling pin, you'll find that you get less things stuck to your rolling pin. I mean, it's hardly rocket science. Good cake decorators were much more like Batman than like Superman. It's all about the toys that we've got in our utility belt and knowing how to use them. You'll notice every now and then I'm just lifting the marzipan to check that it's not getting stuck to my workbench. I'm just going to put a little bit more icing sugar under there. Okay. There we go. So aiming for a nice long roll out, because this is the bit that gets wrapped around the cake. Okay. Now I think we're pretty much good to go now, and you'll notice I've reached the top of those marzipan spacers. That's when I know that I've reached the thickness that I want. Okay. Now the cheapest bit of cake decorating kit you will ever buy is your pizza wheel. Pizza wheel being a circular blade, it won't drag or pull your icing or marzipan. So I'm going to run my pizza wheel along the long edge, and that has created a beautifully straight edge for us. It's that easy. I'm going to take off big chunky bits at the end, because I know we're not going to need those. There we go. And because my cake is not too high, I'm just going to trim again this side. We don't have too much excess. Now it's just a case of wrapping this around the cake. All you do is take the marzipan and lay it There we go. So that those flat edges are flush with your plate underneath your cake. Okay. Now I've got a little bit of excess here, so using a sharp knife, all I'm going to do is cut at the point that they overlap. There we go. Rather awkward to do around this way, you probably want to do it around the other way, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. There we go. So removing those bits of excess and pressing in at the joint. Okay, now this is all starting to look like we want it to look. Just squeezing the marzipan onto the cake so I know that it's stuck. And now I'm going to trim away the excess from the top. Whenever you're trimming anything, you know, involving cake, always cut in towards the middle. If you cut out towards the edges, you end up picking bits of cake off and you can end up with little tears. So I'm pushing in towards the middle of the cake, and I'm actually using the top of the cake as my guide. So the knife is just sliding along the top of the cake, taking away all of that excess that we don't need. There we go. So the reason I marzipan my cake in 2 stages is so that we end up with a beautifully crisp top and sides, and that is where you get that really contemporary modern look on your cakes. People are very much into the very straight edges. Now for the top of the cake, I'm just going to roll out a second piece of marzipan. You don't really need marzipan too much, just bring it back together so that it's in one solid lump. Good bit of icing sugar down. My very noisy icing sugar shaker. There we go. And again, using the marzipan spacers and the non-stick rolling pin, I'm going to roll out this second piece of marzipan to cover the top of my cake. Okay. And you only need to roll out sufficient to cover the top of your cake. So I have a 6-inch cake here. Obviously, if you're working with an 8-inch, you need to roll out 8 inches of icing. It's funny how cake decorating is all in old money, isn't it? We never really went metric. Okay, so again, you are done when you reach the top of your marzipan spacers. There we go, just checking we're not stuck. And here's a tip I learned from Fanny Craddock. She was a sensible woman. Take your cake, turn it upside down so that the top is now the bottom, and using your pizza wheel, just run around the edge of your cake, taking away the excess. Now you could spend hours cutting out a circle to fit the top of your cake and laying it on top, or you could just flip it upside down. Again, we're saving a little bit of time. So there we go, one perfectly marzipaned cake. This is a smoother, straight edge side smoother, and I'm just going to run that around the edges of the marzipan just to make sure that they're stuck to the side of the cake. Okay, and once across the top, make sure that's on. Now the cake to one side. Now with marzipan, you should really do this at least 24 hours before you plan to ice, but you know, I want to be showing you all of this in one go. The reason we give our marzipan 24 hours is so that it can dry a little bit and protect the cake even more. There we go. So, fondant icing. This is the time of year for it. It's the time of year you can't get it in the supermarket because everybody's covering their cakes. This is a very easy product to use, but people are very scared of it. All you need to remember is that you need to knead your sugar paste and make sure it's nice and warm before you attempt to cover your cake. Now I've already got this started, I did cheat, but you need to make sure that it's warm so that it will be malleable and so that it will fold over the edges of your cake very easily. If you don't warm up your icing, you'll find that you get little cracks along the top of your cake. Now you notice I'm kneading round in a ball. It doesn't take much brains to realise that I'm not Paul Hollywood. You don't need to be stretching out sugar paste. Just knead it round, put a little bit of warmth in it. That's all you need to do. The nice thing about kneading round in a bowl as well is that you will find that all of the folds are on one side of the icing, and the top edge there is completely smooth. So we've got a great place to start from. Now, I would hope that you'd have given that a little bit more time. Maybe a good 3 to 5 minutes kneading. It's great for the upper arms. And we all want to look good in our little black dresses this time of year. Okay, so icing sugar down on the bench again. And lay your ball of sugar paste on the top there. Give it a press down. We want it to be flat in the end anyway, so giving it a little press saves time. We want to, go out and party. Take your marzipan spaces again and put them either side of your sugar paste. A little bit of icing sugar on your non-stick rolling pin and roll out in nice, long, fluid movements. Okay? The reason we go out in nice fluid movements is because if we were to be juddery, like this, you'll end up with little ridges along the top of your paste, which we don't want. We want a nice smooth finish. So nice, smooth rolling, really get involved. Use your hands, your wrists, your forearms, really get behind your icing. And we are aiming for sufficient icing to cover the top and the sides of this cake. Okay. So you notice I turn my sugar paste every few rolls. That does two things. First, it ensures that we get a really nice even roll, and secondly, it just makes sure that we're not getting stuck to the workbench, because there's nothing worse than getting it all beautifully rolled out and finding it's not going to go anywhere. That is in fact the worst. Okay. Now, all of the bits of kit I'm using, by the way, I have listed on the website for you, along with links to where to find them, because I know that sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to find bits of cake decorating kit, so hopefully I've taken a little bit of the trouble out of that for you. Now, when you reach the top of the marzipan spaces, again, that's when you know that you're done. And back to my side smoother, which is a fantastic piece of kit for this job. I'm going to just rub the top of the icing. That gives it a great sheen to start with. My husband will tell you this is the closest I come to ironing, but this is pretty much what you're doing, is you're ironing your icing out. Okay, now it's ready to go on our cake. Here we go. You will need to prepare your marzipan with just a little brushing of cool boiled water out of the kettle, or cool clear vodka out of your bottle, whichever one is easiest for yourselves. What you need to ensure is that whatever you're using for this job to be the adhesive at this point is sterilised. Okay, again, we're making sure that we don't end up with any mould growing on our cake. We want it to be pretty indestructible. So vodka or cool boiled water. Don't put hot boiled water on there, make a right mess. There we go. So we want a nice sticky surface. If you've been shown how to lift icing with a rolling pin and you're happy, please carry on doing that. I can't get my head around it, so I use my hands. And I'm going to show you how this looks. Move all this stuff out of the way. I'm going to lay my hands underneath the icing with my fingers closed, so they become like little paddles, and I can rest the icing quite happily on my hands and my forearms. It's not going anywhere, it's secure. Then I will lift it over to the cake and just drop it over like that. Your first job, the minute the icing hits the cake, is to secure the top edges, because we don't want any of that cracking around the top. And I'm using this little fat part of my hand here and pressing very, very gently and just making sure that it's secure at the top edges. Then we're going to do the sides, okay, which is essentially using that same part of your hand and always using an upward stroke. Until you reach the bottom of the cake. Now, there we go. You know that you're done when you can feel your plate underneath your hand. And I'm actually spinning the plate now because it's a little bit of a trick. There we go. When you reach the bottom, you can take your pizza wheel and use that to remove the excess around the bottom of the cake. There we go. So you can see that the pizza wheel is an investment well worth making. Okay, so I'm going to lift off that excess amount there. And you can use this, so do wrap it in cling film, you can use it for other jobs. There we go. So again, just running my hand around to make sure that it's all nice and secure. And then with my smoother again, just a little bit over the top, make sure that's all stuck. And the sides, make sure they're secure and nice and straight. Okay. Now, schoolboy era is getting overexcited with your smoother, so please just go around your cake maybe 3 to 5 times. Don't go around too much. Once that's all nice and smooth and secure, you have covered your cake. Fantastic. That is the hardest part of the job now done. Final flourish. It's a little bit of ribbon. Now, nobody ever said that Christmas has to be for kids. It can be for grown-ups as well, if you want. So a little bit of black sequin maybe. I'm just going to run that around the bottom of my cake with a tiny bit of icing to secure it. Now, in this little squeezy bottle, I've got some glue icing, and essentially what glue icing is just a tiny bit of fondant icing, the same that we used to cover the cake, and that is then mashed together with a little bit of water. Again, cool boiled water out of a kettle is perfect for this job. And you mash it up with a fork until you can pipe with it. These squeezy bottles, you can get them from Johnny Lulu's, you can get them from anywhere. So we need to add a little bit of decoration to this cake, but we don't want to spend too much time on it. So I'm going to show you a fantastic little product. This is a cutter and a mould from Blossom Sugar Art. Okay, now this is petunia, but it looks fantastic as a poinsettia this time of year. So I've got some Renshaw Poppy Red. This is a fondant icing that has been ready coloured. You cannot make red on your own. You need to buy it ready coloured, okay? Because there's no amount of colour you can add to white to get to this intensity of red. So again, just a little knead in your hand. You don't need to knead it down on the table because you've only got a small amount. Just to put some warmth in it. Bit of icing sugar down on your work surface and all over your dress as well, you know, it goes everywhere. And I've got a little small non-stick rolling pin here, which is perfect for this kind of job. And I'm just going to roll that out. You don't need spacers for this job because you only need to get to about maybe 3 millimeters thick. You don't need to go too thick or too thin. There we go. So again, you notice I lift it every now and then just to check that it's not stuck. There we go, I'm happy with that. Then all you do is you cut out your little shapes with the cutter. There we go. Cut those out. And this is a job that you can do in advance. You can make these flowers a week, 2 weeks in advance. Keep them in a cardboard box, not an airtight container, because they will sweat. But you could turn out hundreds of these while watching It's a Wonderful Life or something along those lines and have them all ready to go. Then all you do is you use the mould, a little bit of icing sugar in the mould as well. There we go. Lay your shape inside the mould and press it shut very gently. And what should come out is a beautifully formed little flower. Okay? Now if you leave these to dry, they will hold the shape absolutely beautifully. So you can see how easy these are to do. You can spend years learning how to make sugar flowers, and there are sugar flowers you can spend days and weeks making, but these are nice quick ones because you know you've got places to go this time of year. So you turn those little flowers out, put them aside, leave them to dry in true Blue Peter style. Here are some I made earlier, of course. Ta-da! And a little bit of red glitter. Now there's a rule with glitter, stick to the colour that you're working with, so red on red. There we go, a little sprinkle of that, very festive, very nice. Can never have too much glitter at this time of year. Okay, And then again, using the same glue icing, there we go, using the same icing, just a little squidge on the back of your shape, and then you press it onto your cake. There we go. Start at the bottom, because the lower flowers are going to support the weight of the upper ones. A little squirt on the back there, and then I'm going to put this one next to. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a cascade of little poinsettia blooms. Here we go. So you will see how quick and easy it is to create a really beautiful contemporary Christmas cake. There we go. Now, while I'm doing this job, now would be the time to say that if you've enjoyed this little demo, it's something I've been planning to do for years and years and have not got around to doing. If you enjoy it, if it's useful, if it's helpful, if you go away and you make a Christmas cake like this, please tell me. I'd like you to like this post, I'd like you to comment beneath, come find me on Facebook at Restoration Cake, come talk to me on Twitter, again at Restoration Cake, and let me know if this has been helpful, and let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to learn, because I will put more videos up if you want them. But I need to hear from you, and I need you to tell me if I'm going right. There we go. So, a little cascade of poinsettia blooms, and I think we're probably good to go here. There we go. So, a super quick Christmas cake, a very, very easy way to decorate something really beautiful for your friends and family, and then, you know, just enjoy the rest of the festive season and have a very Merry Christmas. Cheers. Oh, that's good.